Train by day, Kyle Wigington podcast by night, all day.
Melanie Spencer.
That's me.
How's it going?
Are we getting started, or are you just warming up?
Oh, what do you mean we're getting started? We've been started.
Oh, no.
I start recording as soon as people walk in.
Oh, dear. That's such a mean trick.
No, you'll be great. So you've brought us all kinds of goodies today. I love podcasts like this.
I like to keep it interactive for a couple of different reasons. One being most people don't believe that there are actually good non-alcoholic beers and spirits out there.
So okay. Let's first of all start with you started as Drink Fit.
I did. I started Drink Fit Club in 2001.
Okay.
And it's, I guess I would call it an online community that is dedicated to helping motivate people, inspire people, and help them navigate taking booze breaks. So my goal is not, I'm here to evangelize to you about not drinking and, that alcohol is evil. I'm here to say, give your liver a break, and here's how to do it. And here are the benefits that you'll experience. And then also, because I'm an over 20-year veteran journalist, my goal also is to put some information out there for people. So when I occasionally toss up some PSAs, so to speak, I sometimes call them that have to do with the effects of alcohol on our bodies. It's not to make people feel bad about having drinks. It's not to say that alcohol is evil. It's simply to enable us to make informed decisions. Because as I dove deeper and deeper into the effects of alcohol and the things that we've learned in the past probably 10 years or so about it, and the new studies that have come out, it started to make me think maybe we don't know as much as we think we do. And as a journalist, it's very important to me that I can make decisions that are based on good information and act accordingly. And I think other people deserve that as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's poison, basically.
I don't go so far as to say that, because I'm not here to alienate folks. I'm here to start a conversation or to start them on the path to thinking about their relationship with alcohol. But you are absolutely right. It is literally ethanol. It's the same thing we put in our cars. It's just made to taste better.
Yeah. And it makes you feel good.
Well, Initially,
yes. That's where the negative effects come in. So you brought us all kinds of goodies today to try.
I did. And
I've tried some of the other ones you brought before, and they're freaking amazing. Like so much good tasting stuff that's non-alcoholic.
There is. And I think that has made it a lot easier for lots of people. I took a booze break a few years ago, 2016. And I will be honest, it was probably the first time I took a booze break that was more than a week, or maybe I think probably more than a week, since I was probably a teenager. Just like any kid that lives in a rural area. I grew up in Kentucky, and our favorite pastime when I was 15, 16, 17 years old was go to somebody's property and drink, go to somebody's basement and drink. And, we weren't always getting blotto, but it was definitely already a big part of how we hung out as kids. And while I would have definitely had a lot of time off between bouts of having drinks with my friends, there still was that initial, I guess, foray into this is what we do. We go out and we have drinks when we're doing things. And, we might go to a haunted house, but we'd probably try to smuggle in a couple beers or something. Yeah. I was not a saintly child. And so I think that experience probably resonates with a lot of people. And when I did stop for a little break for Lent during 2016, I gave it up. For the 46 days, I didn't do the cheat days. Some people do the feast days if you're Catholic, and you're allowed to have your thing that you gave up on Sundays. Well, I did the full pull. I did 46 full days and nights. And then on Easter, I cracked open a bottle of champagne and had my fill of champagne and I think a Bloody Mary as well. And I think it was lights out at like 4 p.m. because, spoiler alert, your tolerance goes in the tank.
Oh yeah.
Even after just a couple of weeks, really, but for 46 days for sure.
Was that the last one you like had?
No.
Your last one?
So I went back to my normal drinking arts from 2016 through 2020. And it was fortuitous, I guess, that I did the alcohol free for 40 challenge that Eat Fit Oxner does. A lot of people probably know Eat Fit NOLA. And so they do a challenge every year. And that was what the 2016 thing was as well. And then in 2020, I did it again and something just clicked. I don't know what, I guess for whatever reason, I decided that's when I would do the deep diving into the effects of alcohol. And that really caused a shift at that time. And then once lockdowns started and everyone was day drinking, I mean, even more than they normally do in New Orleans, we were getting on Zooms with friends and they were definitely drinking to cope. And I was still in this challenge, and had decided I wasn't going to jump off the wagon. And a couple of my friends who were doing the challenge said, oh, I'm out, I'm done as soon as the lockdown started. And so I kept with it. And then I went to moderation basically during or after Easter. And so I would use some of the non-alcoholic stuff that we're going to talk about in a minute. And I would just sort of do like maybe one non-alcoholic, one foolproof, one non-alcoholic, one foolproof, or I would half and half it. So I mix real gin with 0 proof gin and make a martini or whatever. So I was moderating until July and I'm sticking with the CDC guidelines for women at this point, which are 7 or less drinks per week or units rather. And a unit is a lot smaller than what most people think.
What is it?
I think it just depends on the spirit or the beer. But let's say for beer, that would be 6 ounces, I think. And then for wine, it's 4 ounce pour. Now, I don't know about any other wine drinkers out there, but I don't think I ever have a 4 ounce pour at my house or at most bars.
When you open a bottle, it's got to go,
yeah,
right?
you gotta
finish the bottle.
You gotta finish it,
yeah.
Especially champagne, which I'm a big champagne girl. So I was definitely at this point thinking, well, okay, this definitely keeps you from having buzz when you're only having 1 or 2 drinks, depending on, a lot of factors, probably. I guess 2 might get some people there, but and I kept thinking, what is the point? And I feel so much better. I could tell the difference when I even had 1 or 2. So July of 2020, I decided I would do Dry July. And I raised money for the entity that started it in Australia. It's an agency for cancer patients, and it helps them get to appointments and do other things for them. And obviously very worthwhile cause. And another spoiler alert, it felt right to me because alcohol definitely is a carcinogen. So there is a bit of a connection there. And in addition to that, I was raising money in memory of whom I call my other mother, who had leukemia. And she also was diagnosed at some point with substance use disorder is what we call it now. And she had given up alcohol probably, for 10 years or more at the point when she actually got diagnosed and started getting treatment for leukemia. So, there were a lot of connections there for me. So it resonated. I raised money. And that July 4th was when I started my Dry July. So I guess it was a semi-dry July. But I'm bummed. And so then that was the last time I had an actual full alcoholic beverage.
Well, and most people don't realize it too, but that's hard to do in New Orleans.
It can be, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to diminish the reality of the ubiquitousness of alcohol at literally
Everywhere.
thing you do, and 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I think part of it for me too was the fact that I am a journalist. I am a lifestyle journalist, which means that when somebody opens a new boutique, when somebody opens a new restaurant or a bar or any entity in the city, whether it's arts or, whatever kind of organization, they have a little party and they invite journalists and everyone has drinks, and that could be a morning thing. It could be an afternoon thing. It could be an evening thing. And so presumably, if you're not drinking, that's so many times a day that you have to say no.
Right.
Or that you are going to, say no if you're not drinking.
Well, yeah, that's part of my thing too. Since I run this bar, I'm always around this place and I'm always around alcohol, but it's a lot of times I just want to have something in my hand.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with the actual alcohol. I just need something in my hand. So I noticed that when I come in and I get just a ginger ale.
Right.
Like that's perfect for me. But if I had something that was like, that looked like something like
real
this.
Cocktail.
Yeah, it'd be kind of nice.
Well, and that's part of it too, is that there are so many occasions, I mean, even kids' birthday parties where people are having drinks and you don't want to have what I call the sad water. You're standing there with this, bottle of water or sad cup of water, and it feels very unsophisticated and you sort of feel like everyone's paying attention. FYI, they're not. No one notices, but you notice and you don't feel as festive maybe, or you feel as though I would like to be trying something interesting or special. And these drinks enable that. And, I've been in here many times when you've whipped up something yummy for me and put some nice garnish in it. And that satisfies it for me and really has since day one. I just want to know what to do with my hands.
Right.
And that's half the battle for a lot of people.
You brought me like a mojito drink the last time you were here.
Yeah. So a friend of mine had given me a few cans of things that I hadn't tried before. And some of, just like with foolproof stuff, the cans of things are coming out and they're getting better and better. And so these 0 proof cans of mixed drinks, and I wish I could remember the name of the one that I shared with you that day, but it was so good.
It was good.
And honestly, that's one of the better, maybe the best fojito I've ever had. I wish I could take credit for coming up with that.
No, it was delicious though. So what'd you bring us today?
So today I brought, this is Liar's Italian Spritz, and it will really blow people's mind if they choose to try it because it does taste like an Aperol Spritz. And I have several friends who've tried it. I have a friend who occasionally likes to bounce between foolproof and 0 proof. And she and I both just absolutely love this. And she still drinks and she agrees this tastes really exactly like the real thing.
Nice.
And you can pair it with we're going to pair it with tonic, but you can do club soda if you don't want it as sweet or if you're trying to cut calories. You can also do it with some of the non-alcoholic sparkling wines that are out there to really make it a lot like an Aperol Spritz. And the same company, Liars, and if you're in New Orleans, Martin Wine Cellar has this. And by the way, I don't have any affiliate relationships. I'm not sponsored. Everything I share is because I bought it and I like it. Or they gave it to me because I had some sort of, event or something. And I will tell you if they gave it to me. This I purchased. All of these I purchased. I'm also going to share with you Athletic, which is a really, really good non-alcoholic craft beer. They actually have started to show up around town because, as well as Liars, they've gotten distribution locally. So you'll be seeing this at Second Line Brewing, at some of Kyle's competitor bars, at some of the restaurants, maybe I think I've seen some people post about that. And then this one is Surreal Brewing, which is, I forget, I want to say they're out of maybe Michigan. I could be lying there, so don't hold me to that. But this one is their 17-mile porter. And then this one is the Athletic Cerveza, which is my favorite. Oh, sorry, Cerveza Athletica. And then this is an IPA. So those are the drinks I'm going to share today, but there's so much out there. And the Liar's Classico, to my earlier point, that's their take on a Prosecco. And I've turned a lot of friends onto it who really love their champagne or their Prosecco.
Not this one, another one you're talking about?
Liar's, the same company, LYRE''S. So it's a very clever take on the word liar, LIAR, because it's not the real thing. And just as a little side note, some of, if not all of these non-alcoholic spirits, wines, beers, they do cost as much as the real thing. And in some cases more, because the processes that they have to go through to either de-alcoholize it or make it without alcohol.
Probably small batch too, right?
Yeah, it's a little smaller batch. And they use really high quality ingredients because they're wanting to provide a superior product. As you can see, the bottling is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. I have a completely zero proof bar, much to my husband's dismay at home. Kyle knows my husband.
Yeah, Mark's great.
And my husband likes his drinks. And the completely non-alcoholic bar, if you didn't look very closely, you wouldn't know because it's all of these gorgeous spirits bottles.
Yeah, no, this looks like official.
It really does.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the brands. On drinkfitclub.com/drinks, I have my extra special curated list complete with links and places where you can get these things both nationally and around town. And again, none of it's sponsored or anything. It's just stuff I like.
We're going to have to start carrying at least one of these things because I mean, for you, obviously.
Just for me.
Well, I mean, but I need something here that I can drink too. Cause I'm getting I'm over the alcohol stuff too. Yeah.
I know you had been kind of going back and forth.
I teeter. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I just want to stress any break, even if you're a daily, I like to have my old fashioned at the end of the day, or if you're a heavy drinker, or if you're a big weekend warrior drinker, even just 3 days can make a big difference. But once you get into a week to 2 weeks, you really start to see some pretty amazing things with your actual biomarkers. I also edited a book, which you can see here. It's Craft the Eat Fit Guide to Zero Proof Spirits. And I did this with Molly Kimball. She's a registered dietitian and the director of Eat Fit Oxnard, which is all over the state. And I think now going into Mississippi and some other states. And Ethan Skaggs, who is a local beverage industry just wizard. And
sounds familiar.
He used to do bar programs for several local bars. Mm-hmm. And so he was our recipe developer along with Molly. And he's, a bartending pro. So he knows what these drinks are supposed to taste like. He literally now is in distribution and is introducing a lot of different spirits, both non-alcoholic and alcoholic, to bar owners and restaurant owners all over the US at this point. So he knows his stuff, and they develop these drinks that some of them really do mimic the real thing. So if you are watching this or listening to this and you struggle with addiction, just be notified that sometimes this stuff can make you want the real thing. So you have to be mindful of where you are with that relationship, because they do really taste like it.
So you think people are addicted to the taste and not the feeling? I
think some people are in the habit.
The taste triggers the feeling, maybe.
Yes. So I think some people are in the habit of having a thing that tastes a certain way. And if you are struggling with addiction, then that taste can trigger, for lack of a better word, you wanting the foolproof stuff.
Kind of like a placebo.
Yes. So you're not getting any alcohol from any of this stuff, but it can make you feel in the mindset of it, I suppose.
Interesting.
And we just are really learning a lot more about addiction in the past few years, and how it is really on a sliding scale and not really, black and white whatsoever. And so even if you're not what would be considered diagnosed substance use disorder, you still could have cravings, much like but maybe not as intense as someone who is over here on that scale, even if you're a very moderate drinker. So even just maybe smelling a spirit or your favorite wine or whatever might be a trigger, because just like triggering yourself to, for example, go running in the morning by putting your shoes out and your running clothes out, and that's the first thing you see when you wake up. Those things can be, the same thing happens in your brain essentially when it comes to alcohol or a beverage. So you may not want a cookie, but you see a cookie, now you want a cookie.
Right.
It's sort of the same premise. It doesn't have to be a substance. It could really be anything. It could be also something positive or something negative. So because our brains work in this way when it comes to environmental or emotional triggers, pretty much anything could be a trigger, and it's very unique to the individual. For me, having this stuff, it doesn't make me want the real thing. For somebody else, and whether they have an addiction issue or not, it might be, oh, okay, now I want some wine. It just depends. And you sort of have to learn what those things are for you. And I will say, when you're on a booze break long enough, and for me, it'll be 3 years in July.
It's a lot.
I have been surprised at a few times when I have felt a craving, and it sort of took me aback a little bit, because you don't realize it until it happens, obviously. Thankfully, I've had a lot of tools in place to kind of combat that, because a craving, FYI, only lasts about 20 minutes. So if you ride it out, and again, I'm not talking about addiction. I'm talking about just a run-of-the-mill craving for a piece of cake.
So what do you find that triggers you?
Well, the things that triggered me, that surprised me over the past 3 years, one of them was I went home to Kentucky for a funeral, and it was my grandmother's funeral. And my husband and I were walking down the street in one of the neighborhoods that I used to hang out in growing up, or, not really growing up as much as when I was in college and adulthood before moving away. And I saw these folks sitting at this really nice patio bar, and they were having the crispest looking white wine, and the condensation was on the glass. And I think they had these beautiful charcuterie boards there. And this is my jam. Like, this is what we're talking about right here. Just on a normal day, that looks really good to me. And the weather was gorgeous because it was spring. And, of course, I'm up in my feelings, and I just thought, oh boy, that's what I want right now. And I was in a craving mode, and I thought, okay, noted. That was something that triggered it. And it was a perfect storm of things. I can't say if my grandmother hadn't died, or if we weren't in Kentucky in this neighborhood I used to hang out in. It was probably a factor of many of those things.
A good combination of them. Yeah.
But I didn't drink. So, and it wouldn't have been the end of the world for me if I had. It's just a decision I've made. So for me personally, I will have a little, what I call a communion wine sippy or a thimble sippy of my husband's drink or somebody else's drink if I want to try it. One reason being because I want to sort of keep my palate to be able to say to my friends or folks that follow Drink Fit, if they're asking me, does that taste like the real thing? I can tell them yes or no.
Right.
And the thing to keep in mind with a lot of these non-alcoholic versions is that they're very light versions in many cases.
The flavor profile?
Very much so. So the beers have gotten pretty good. I will say this porter is more of a lighter porter. But these two, the IPA and the Cerveza Atletica, I can never get the name right. I'm sorry, athletic people. This one really just tastes like any beer to me.
Yeah.
And this tastes like the real thing. Some of the wines, I know that the wines to date, if you have had a couple of the brands that are out there that have been there for a while, really do taste like trash. And I do not recommend them.
Some wines taste like trash.
Some
though.
wines do it. It really is sort of dealers or, roulette a lot of times if you're trying a new wine. But some of them are really, really disgusting. And it has only been in recent, probably 4 years that I've had one, 3 or 4 years that was good. One of my favorites, I'm a Pinot Grigio girl, and it's not a Pinot Grigio, but it drinks like one, in my opinion. It has that acidity. It has that really nice, crisp. I sort of get apple from it, but it's just a really nice, crisp, acidic, mineral infused wine. And it's called Guysen. And it's a Sauvignon Blanc. I've gotten it at Whole Foods for the most part whenever I get it. And it's sort of my go-to. And it really does taste like the real thing. It just tastes like the lightest version of a Pinot Grigio you've ever had. And then a brand called Sovi. This is a husband and wife team that have both been in the wine industry for their entire careers, one on the marketing end and one on the winemaking end, if memory serves. And it's Sovi. They are coming out with some reserves. They're coming out. They have a red blend. They have a rosé, a sparkling rosé, and they have a sparkling Chardonnay, and they're all good.
All non-alcoholic?
All non-alcoholic, completely non-alcoholic. And FYI, there are obviously some beverages out there that have like 0.05%.
It's like grape juice, right?
Yeah. I mean, a banana apparently has more alcohol in it than some of the NA that qualify for NAs. There are a lot of no and low products out there too. So low ABV products are not what I'm talking about.
Right.
And a lot of the low ABV wines are kind of hot right now. So I'm talking about completely zero proof or with a negligible amount in which you'd probably die from having too much liquid in your body before you would actually get drunk.
Yeah.
So, and I'm talking about the NA beers that are, some of them are 0.05%.
See, I never understood the people liking the flavor of alcohol. The flavor's never done it for me. It's all about the feeling for me. Yeah. So that's why when it comes to drinking things that taste like alcohol, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
When I drink, I want to get drunk.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people do. And that's why I feel for anyone who decides to do a booze break or give up alcohol for health reasons or just because they hate hangovers or whatever the reason or no reason.
Oh, hangovers.
I know.
Dude, they get so freaking bad now.
And it is, I hate to be the person to remind everyone, but it does get worse as you age.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting older. That's why.
Okay. I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours.
Age?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I don't reveal my age.
Okay. Well, I just turned 50.
Get the fuck out of here.
At the end of December.
Are you kidding? You're joking.
I'm serious.
Wow.
1972, December 27th, 1972.
Now you look good 50. It's because you don't drink. See people?
Well, I like to fool myself into thinking that I just have good genes and that I looked really good a few years ago when I gave up alcohol. Mm-hmm. And by all accounts, I'm not going to, be down on myself. I did look pretty good, but I look back at the photos now and I've done some of the real close up, like before and afters, and I can see a huge difference. Like it's so weird.
Puffiness, right?
But puffiness, and my eyes are so big and round and clear now and kind of sparkly. I know it sounds like I'm just, hello, I'm fabulous, but I am, A. And B, I've noticed the eyes probably more than anything, and obviously the puffiness, but my skin is softer because you're fully hydrated. We don't realize how dehydrated we're getting and hence hangovers. But when we drink regularly, it takes probably at least a couple of weeks before you're at full hydration. And for some people, it can take anywhere from 48 to 72 hours for alcohol to actually leave your system. And it can take longer depending on how often you drink, how much you drink, yada, yada. So it really is unique to each person, the different benefits or effects that they'll see as they run through the different time frames. So a lot of times everybody wants to know, what benefits will I see after a week? Well, your skin will feel a little softer. You will have a little more energy, possibly. You might, depending again on how many calories of alcohol you consume each week, see a little weight loss. I mean, there are certain markers within that first week. But then again, as you get to those 2-week range, and what I was going to say earlier about Molly is with the Alcohol Free for 40 challenge, they do biomarkers and you can have blood draw and get your weight and all of that at the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. And Molly did it. She tested herself back in 2016 before launching the program. And she did her biomarkers at the beginning and then after 2 weeks. And then, I think just at different stages. And even after 2 weeks, her liver enzymes started to change for the better. She saw so many changes that I think she said her doctor or a doctor that she spoke with thought that she was lying because it was so drastic and that in that short amount of time. So that's why I'm saying even just 2 weeks is really good for your body.
Yeah.
And going 3 years, that I'm coming up on, that is not for everyone. That's a me thing. I keep riding it out because I have seen zero downsides to it at this point, and I've gotten past feeling left out of drinking shenanigans. And so that's kind of unique to everybody. I will have a little sip at a wedding to do the toast if I didn't bring, smuggle in any of my non-alcoholic stuff. And that's what's so funny is, back in the day, I'd be smuggling in some bourbon into, the horse races or in a flask or, smuggling something into wherever event, bar, whatever, especially when I was younger and very poor. And now I'm smuggling in non-alcoholic drinks. And, I mean, you saw my pre-drinking or, not alcohol-free shenanigans.
Yeah, that's when I met you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my husband and I would come in 3-4 times a week and have a little drink while we were out on our walk and maybe hang out for a couple hours. And, I really enjoy my cocktails, but I also really enjoy these non-alcoholic things. And what I learned about myself anyway, is it was more that it was a habit. Mm-hmm. And I'm just as happy to have a non-alcoholic drink. Yeah.
I'm starting to realize that too. I think one of the best things for people to do if they're thinking about doing the 1 week or 2 week challenge is do the before and after pictures.
Yeah.
Because you can actually realize so much about yourself whenever you do the before and afters.
And really uncomfortably close on your face.
Yes.
So crop it and really get close to your face, because that's at first, especially where you're going to see the majority of the changes.
Let's whip us up some cocktails here.
Let's do it. Okay. So
ice first.
Yeah. Put the ice in there. And I mean, if you do decide that you want to take a little booze break, I do recommend trying to schedule it, at least initially, around a time when you don't have a lot of stuff coming up. I think the good thing about Lent, for a long one anyway, is that you don't really have a lot going on in terms of New Orleans events anyway. Mm-hmm. There is St. Patrick's Day, and some people in the alcohol-free...
That's like right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, so alcohol-free for 40 is actually happening currently. And a lot of folks will give themselves a cheat or feast day or whatever for St. Patrick's Day. I never did. I always just went ahead. I'm really just eyeballing this, you guys.
Well, she's asking about eyeballing, and I said, yeah, you can eyeball a non-alcoholic drink. Yes, that's fine.
I said, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
It tastes like garbage. So yeah, we're just going to are we doing club soda or tonic?
That's tonic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to top her off. We didn't do a garnish.
Oh, I'm sorry. What do you normally garnish with? Like,
for
lemon,
this, I would
lime?
do an orange.
Orange? Okay.
But I'm all about garnish games. So, I mean, stick a sprig of rosemary in there. Like,
cheers.
Whatever.
Oh, wow.
It has that bitter
dude, that's delicious.
Finish, right?
That's actually fat. Oh, that's good.
I told you, it tastes like the real thing. It's weird.
That's actually, I think it's better than the real thing.
I think that the real thing can sometimes be a little harsh. And that's, if you're not a spirits lover, if you don't like the burn, good. Which a lot of people do want the burn, these are great because that's sort of omitted. Now, there is one brand called Ritual that puts pepper, a certain kind of pepper in their stuff. They distill it with pepper. And so it does have a little burn. But most of them, that's what you're missing is the burn.
That's fascinating. I love that a lot.
Aren't you like confused? Like thinking I am having an alcoholic beverage.
It tastes like, I'm not a big fan of like.
But yeah, you said you don't really love
Aperol.
Aperol.
Like Aperol, yeah. So this right here, and I don't know what it is about the Aperol. Yeah, I love this a lot. Yeah, it's weird. That's what confuses me about it. One
of the things that early on, and I can't remember who I read that suggested this. There's this entity called Club Soda that's out of the UK, and they help people through booze breaks. I actually did their, I think, month-long challenge. And so it was probably through them. But if you're doing a booze break, it's really good, like I said, to try to plan it around a time when you don't have a lot going on. So let's say you're doing a 3-day or a week. Pick a week when you don't have a wedding and or a networking conference type thing or, whatever. I mean, you can pick a week when you have things to do, but it would be better just to not torture yourself into going into a situation that you would normally have drinks. If you feel sort of, I don't know, wobbly about it.
So basically what you're saying is if you live in New Orleans, good luck. Because there's always something.
There's always something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you have FOMO, it's going to be harder for you. I don't. I'm an introvert. So I relish opportunities to stay at home and read a book.
I am too. Were you guys, did we have the THC beverages last time you guys were here?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, we got some of those into. How do you feel about those things?
I've never really been a weed girl. Mm-hmm. So, for me, there's no allure. I would be probably interested in trying them just for the sake of knowledge and experimentation and to be able to tell people what how they make you feel. Some of the drinks have aptogens and I've never really gotten any.
What does that mean?
It's different herbal, I guess, elements that make you feel either more calm. They're supposed to be good for you. Like ashwagandha is one. And so I drink an ashwagandha latte every night that, maybe it helps me sleep. Maybe it does something.
Where do you get that from?
Me. I get it from this entity called Banyan Botanicals, and they have a premix that I just put the powder in with some coconut milk and, heat it up and call it a day. But there are lots and lots of products out there. I'm actually exploring that right now for an article. So I will be able to tell you more about where to get it locally and which ones to get and which ones are just sort of not really enough of the product, the herb to do anything for you. Mm-hmm. But as of right now, I don't have that information. So you'll just have to follow me online and find out. But, I don't really actively feel things when I drink those beverages. There is a local guy, or actually a couple of guys that have a company called Yoro, Yoro, and they have an aptonogenic line out that they have several different flavors. I think their pineapple guava is the one that I like the taste of the best, but, I've had those and I don't get any sort of altered states or feelings from it, but some people might.
Well, if you drink one of these THC things, you will definitely, yeah. They're dangerous. I don't know how they're
function.
I don't know how they're even legal to sell in places.
Yeah. Because there's a loophole right now with things like Delta 8.
Yeah.
Where the law hasn't caught up quite with what people are selling. And I think in Louisiana right now, they're looking at ways to better regulate it or to close the loophole. Even though medicinal marijuana is legal now, there's just this gap in the legislation. And so they're trying to work with how they can close it. I think that it'll be sort of an uprising if they try to go too hard on it. But I believe what they're wanting to do, what they've proposed, is that they would just mind how people are advertising it. So it won't be that they can't sell it. At least that's what they're proposing now.
You just can't advertise it?
Well, it's just, I guess, restrictions on the way you advertise it. And so I'm not really sure what that'll translate to, but that's kind of what the latest news that I've read has been on it.
So these things are 6 milligrams of THC And, it doesn't seem like a lot, I guess. I don't really know about edibles much, but I drank one the other night. I was on an empty stomach just to see kind of how it made me feel. I was sitting outside out there.
You went to the moon?
Oh my God. I like after about 20 minutes, I was like, hang on a second. Something's weird. Like this feels weird.
Wow.
I was gone. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I had to sit here until 11 o'clock that night just to like sober up before I could get in the car and drive home.
Oh, so it was really hard.
It was an edible. Yeah. I mean, it was
it's
psychedelic.
Like having an edible.
Yeah. It was like a psychedelic. So I don't know, man. Some people come out here and drink 2 or 3 of those things and they're just gone. Like they're dangerous.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's all about that informed consent. If you don't know what you're drinking, and most of us, quite frankly, don't, and you're having multiples of it because you're getting that, dopamine hit or feeling of euphoria, depending on the substance, we don't half the time know what we're putting in our bodies when we're drinking these things. No. And that's really what this is about on so many levels for me anyway, is knowing what I'm putting in my body.
Yeah.
I'm a certified yoga teacher and Ayurvedic nutrition counselor as well, or I'm certified to do that. I don't really do it for pay. It's really just my own knowledge and being able to write about it knowledgeably as well. And just for my own personal practices. And I think that too has had an impact on where I am with alcohol, because I want to be mindful of what I'm putting in my body. And I've always been that way. I mean, over the years, I've been vegetarian off and on. I do eat a fairly plant-based diet, but I call myself more of a flexitarian. Mm-hmm. Again, in Louisiana, I mean, it's really difficult to not eat meat here.
I love meat.
I know, because pork, bacon has always been my gateway.
Bacon,
meat.
Yeah. Dude, we went to this place last night. It was a Korean barbecue, or a Korean restaurant, whatever it is. Korean barbecue restaurant, I guess what it is. You go in there, there's like this, grill in the middle of the table, and they bring you bowls of meat all night long.
Yeah.
I ate so much last night. Like I'm dragging today.
You have a meat hangover.
My body's just been digesting all night long. Yeah.
I went to one of those Brazilian steakhouses once, and I definitely got meat sweats at the table.
No, it's bad. It's like a challenge when you go there.
Experience. I know, right?
And I go there with my buddies too. So then we got like this beef going too, where it's like, okay, I'm going to eat more than you are.
Meat. Yeah. It's, and honestly, it's the same way with alcohol. We get out at a restaurant or we get at a party, and the host or the bartender or the server keeps refilling our glass, and it's exactly the same thing. We have no idea how much we've consumed, and you stagger out of the place sort of surprised at why you can't walk properly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or you black out and just are like, how did I get here?
Mm-hmm. Mm. And obviously, especially when we're younger and we still haven't really even learned our limits. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I was still sort of learning how to drink.
I still haven't figured it out. Yeah. Limits. What is a limit?
What's a limit?
Limits whenever I black out, I guess.
When you hit the floor.
Yeah.
Then you're done. Yeah. So it's definitely trickier, I think, than we want to realize societally as a culture. And I think in the United States, especially, but also probably in the UK and Australia, the drinking culture is very pro and very suspicious of people who don't drink.
Right.
And I will say, I was absolutely that person who would say, oh, I don't trust anyone who doesn't drink. Mm. And that's really, now I realize how idiotic that is.
Bad influence on you.
I know. I was a bad influence on others and myself.
Well, I mean, look what I do for a living.
Right.
So, yeah.
You're a dealer.
I'm horrible.
You're a dealer, basically. And again, it's not to vilify the substance. I will be honest and, maybe probably surprise some people, but I am not in favor of any kind of prohibition of any substance. I think all of it should be legal because it doesn't serve anyone except for the people that are making money off of it to keep it illegal.
Right.
And it ends up undermining so much of our actual society and ability to take care of people who do get addicted to substances. And if we're putting them in jail, that's not a way to help them.
No, not at all.
And it often and usually makes it worse, and it costs us more money as a society. And so that's my very personal opinion, has nothing to do with my employers or anyone in my life, but that is how I feel about it. And I've had a lot, just like probably everybody, a lot of people in my family, a lot of very close friends who struggle with substance abuse, who have succumbed to their illnesses, who have died from it. And some of them have gone to jail because of it. And none of that made them quit or seek help, because there's stigma, there's
It adds
shame.
to the problem. Yeah.
And so if we're able to talk about addiction, if we're able to properly help the people that need help, and that could be anyone from the highest, most, respected professions and professionals in the world, they can succumb to addiction, to the lowliest, most in want of us. And so it doesn't discriminate, and we need to find a better way to deal with it and to help these people across the board. And by legalizing it, we can focus less on incarceration and more on actually helping people get clean.
When educating people about these things.
Absolutely educating them. And here's the thing. Now, yes, there are going to be some people who don't use weed, for example, because it has been illegal. There are also a lot of people who have continued to use weed despite the prohibition of it, and who will continue to use it whether it's legal or not.
Why do you think it's illegal, first of all?
That's a really long story and probably one for a podcast for another day. But the war on drugs that started, before I was born, it didn't work. It didn't work. And I don't think at this point discussing the why is as beneficial as discussing the fact that it hasn't worked,
Right.
And there are people a lot smarter than me that have analyzed this and who are academics and who could speak very smartly about it. I really am not that person. I just think it hasn't worked and we need to fix it.
Yeah, I think it's illegal because of the way it makes your brain function. Because I notice that whenever I'm looking at a problem and I can't figure the problem out, if I smoke some weed and sit down with the problem, I can see it from different angles.
You get more creative about the solution. I mean, I think it's easy to say it's because the government wants us to remain stupid and uncreative. And at the same time, you could say that they would want us to be addicted to things because then we're less active in protesting the things that we don't like that are going on in the world. I'm sure somebody can make an argument for any of that. But at the same time, I think it has more to do with just bad legislation and ignorance about what a lot of substances do. Because there was a time when anybody could get morphine, anybody could get opium, anybody could get a lot of cocaine, anybody could get any of these really what are considered hard drugs, and you could get them prescribed from your doctor. I'm talking the 1800s, obviously. But, at some point, those things started to get more regulated, and perhaps rightfully so. But at the same time, the prohibition movement, and that's what that is with weed, it's prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
Prohibition didn't work with alcohol, and it obviously hasn't worked with weed either.
No.
And, when it comes to alcohol, it's so acceptable by society, even though it actually causes more harm.
Yeah.
It costs society more money to deal with the fallout. It is really one of the most addictive substances, even though it's legal. And we're perfectly content to serve it at any function across the United States, anytime, day or night, at, events in Washington, D.C. with all of our legislators, that the same very ones that are saying that weed should be illegal. we're very open-minded about alcohol, and that's fine, but it's probably worse than a lot of this other stuff.
I agree. And this podcast could seem counterintuitive to what we do here. But no, I know that alcohol is bad for people and it's bad for myself. Yeah. But people still want it. And I think if, like
and it's
you said,
legal. And
it's legal. That's the reason they want it. If there were other substances that were legal, I think they would take those and be healthier, in my opinion.
Well, and as I was going to kind of circle back to this earlier, but yes, there are going to be some people who will use things that were illegal when they become legal, but you probably aren't going to see somebody go, oh, well, if cocaine, for example, were to become legal, oh, cocaine's legal now, I'm going to try it and I'm going to use it every day. I mean, that's not really how that works. I personally, even if it were legal, would have no interest in drinking cocaine, whether I drank or smoked weed or not.
Well, they've actually done experiments on mice about this. The cocaine experiments, they give cocaine water and sugar water to the mice. Mm-hmm. And they found out that when the mice actually had good enough social stimulation, they preferred the sugar over the cocaine.
Right.
Yeah, because they didn't need it.
Right. And that's kind of the same way with having your drink. Mm-hmm. My husband's belated birthday party was celebrated. It was
a good time.
Right here a couple of weeks ago. And I was I think the only person not imbibing in our group of about, 15 people or something. And every time you looked over at me, was I sitting there?
You were the life of the party that night. No, you were everywhere. It was great. Socialite.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, I'm an introvert, but when I do spend my energy socializing, I like to have a good time. Mm-hmm. And I for a long time was definitely using alcohol as a social lubricant to help me socialize more frequently. On those days when I didn't feel like it, because once I got a drink in me, the sugar and the alcohol would make it possible for me to socialize 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week, even though really when I finally took a step back and learned what was best for me, my body and my mind, it was more like once, twice a week. Mm-hmm. And that's good. I'm good, especially in a bigger group, because it takes a lot of my energy to be in a big group and to focus on a lot of stimulation and a lot of people and trying to catch up with them.
That's me bartending.
Right.
Yeah. At the end of the night, I'm drained.
It's very exhausting. Like even this interaction that normally one-on-one is a little easier for me, but I had a little online class earlier with like probably 13 people in it. And so I'll need a little quiet time later today to myself.
No, it drains you. Like I normally do 2 or 3 of these on Sundays, and sometimes I do Saturday and Sunday. So that's 6 hours talking, you know, on the weekends. That's just exhausting.
Well, and the Ayurvedic nutrition counselor in me points to the fact that we don't spend enough time digesting our lives. And Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga. And essentially, yoga is not just those poses that you see people doing. It also is a lot of other stuff. And Ayurveda is part of that. And so it's what you eat, how you eat it, how you do certain practices throughout the day. So your morning routine might include brushing your teeth and drinking hot water and going to the bathroom and whatever it is that helps you start your day in a way that feels good. Maybe you do some meditation later. Maybe in the evening, you drink the ashwagandha latte I was telling you about. These little things that help us kind of stay grounded and stay refreshed and to nourish us. And obviously eating is part of that. And so it concerns itself with digestion. And this one teacher, Myra Lewin, who runs Hale Pule, which is in Thailand, I think. I love her take on it, which is it helps you digest your food and your life. And so here we are, people living in this modern age. And this is Ayurveda is a science that was started like 6,000 years ago and in India. And so here we are in our modern era wondering, how is this relevant to me today? Mm-hmm. And it's relevant because we're all input. We're constantly looking at devices. We're looking at TV. We're streaming. We're doing podcasts. We are in a state of information overload. then we go out to the bar and we see our friends and we catch up and we're talking to mom on the phone and, all of the things that we do at work and in our daily lives. And it's almost all input. Now, when are we digesting that? When we hit the bed exhausted at night? That's one way. Sleep is a way to digest. But at the same time, I don't think we ever really give ourselves a chance to digest most of and process most of the things that we're putting into our minds and bodies. And so by taking a booze break, by nourishing yourself a little bit during that time and evaluating how you feel when you're not drinking as much or not drinking, those little things, they add up and they enable us to take that step back and say, maybe I am drinking a little too much, or maybe I am running around like a chicken with my head cut off most days of the week and not getting enough downtime. And I think that was a lot of what really sold me on my choice to just stay away from alcohol, because when I do drink regularly, I'm not as apt to say no to the things in my life that keep me from being able to rest a little bit. And rest for me might be going on a hike. I mean, I'm not talking about just
sitting at home sleeping.
Or,
What drew you to the Ayurvedic lifestyle?
I've been practicing yoga and meditation off and on since college. And so for me, that would be in the 90s. And so I really was introduced to my first, I guess, yogic practice by my mom, who is one of the people that I lost to addiction in my life. And so when I was in probably grade school, she introduced me to what's a lot of people will know as a body scan practice, which is a yogic practice. And that's just where you start either at your feet or at the top of your head, and you just scan every part of your body. So you'll say top of your head, your forehead, your eyes, and you just kind of sense into what you're feeling there and try to relax it a little. And a lot of people use it as a technique to fall asleep. It's very effective. So she basically was like, oh, this is something I learned during the only meditation class I ever went to. Mm-hmm. And it sort of stuck with me. It was like a seed was planted for me as a kid. And I used it. Well, then cut to probably college. I actually started practicing meditation again, off and on. It wasn't a terribly regular practice.
Love meditation.
I love it. I highly recommend it. It's not a cure-all, but boy, it helps with a lot of stuff.
I get lost in meditation.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for hours.
I mean, for me, sometimes as many years as I've been doing it, I still have really bad monkey mind, and my brain will just be focusing on literally everything except for my breath. But I still sit and I still do it. And when I don't, I feel it, See,
I'm at a point now with meditation. Whenever I close my eyes, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing it so deeply and
that's awesome.
Yeah. And only for like 5 years or so.
I get there sometimes, but we all, I think, have to find our version of meditation, right, our style of meditation, and really experiment. Because for me, it's yoga nidra, which is actually meditation.
Like resting yoga?
Right. And what's great about it is if you have terrible monkey mind, mm-hmm, and you're wanting to think about your to-do list instead of, focusing on your breath, for example, single point meditation is what that's called. Then it's great because it keeps your mind occupied. So in yoga nidra, the guidance is that a person that's guiding it will tell you, think about your left foot, your left toe, your left second toe, your left third toe. And they'll literally keep doing that. And sometimes they'll switch it up to just mess with you because you think you know what they're going to say next, but they won't. So you're like, okay, they just said my left big toe. So they're obviously going to say my left second toe, but then they'll be like, your pinky toe. And it keeps you just engaged enough that your mind can't do its dumb mind stuff. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you might fall asleep. The goal is not to fall asleep though. And they'll guide you through that. And sometimes they'll use imagery like a beach or whatever. And again, they just keep switching it to where you can never really let your brain do its silly brain things. And when I do it, I come out of it feeling like I've had a 2-hour nap. It's bonkers. So if you're wondering about meditation out there, even 1 minute a day is better than no minutes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Grow the muscle, work up to it. You don't want to just like jump in and expect to be gone.
And meditation helps with cravings for alcohol, for pretty much anything because it taps into the craving center of your brain, and it helps basically kind of make that muscle stronger, the no muscle, if you will. And also, I did want to take a moment to talk about neural pathways. So the first time I gave up alcohol in 2016 for Lent, it was harder because I had never done it before. So one of the really good metaphors for that I heard was it's sort of like when you have a path from the street to your house, to the front door of your house, and it's really well worn. And it's just a dirt path. There's no branches grown over. It's just a clear shot from the street to your door. And that's your drinking neural pathway if you are used to having drinks fairly often. And so when you stop having drinks and you're trying to retrain those neural pathways, at first it's hard. And that could be for anything. It could be, any kind of craving, any kind of habit. If you're trying to grow a new habit, it's about these neural pathways. And so every time you do the positive habit or avoid what we'll call a negative habit, I'm trying to be a little Eastern about this because there's no good or bad. It's negative, positive, whatever.
Yeah.
So every time you engage in either your positive habit or your negative habit, that pathway from the road to the door, it's starting to close up a little bit. And the pathway that was so difficult before that you had to have your machete to hack away at it, it's starting to get a little smoother. And so over time, even if let's say you do a 3-day break from alcohol and then you go back to drinking normally, then let's say 2 months from now, you do a week or just another 3 days. Every single time, even though there's been time in between that, it gets a little easier because you've built this new neural pathway and you've created this easier path from the door, the street to the door. So it's harder at first, and then it starts to get easier.
Because you've already built the pathway.
Because you're starting to build the pathway.
Yeah.
So keep at it. And even if you slip, so let's say I'm going to do a week and 3 days in, you end up having a drink. It's not, I'm a failure. I screwed it up. Might as well just
go off the deep end.
Yeah. Drink till I hit the floor. That's not how it works. You still have started to create those pathways. So on the 4th day, just get back up again and don't have a drink that day. I'm never going to poo-poo Alcoholics Anonymous because I think it helps a lot of people. It's not for everyone. And again, we're not talking about addiction, but I do like their 1 day at a time motto because it is so apt for so many things in life when it comes to habit building or getting rid of bad habits or negative habits. Or let's just say habits that no longer serve you.
There you go.
That's a good one because you did well on that day or that 5 minutes or however, much time you're allotting for this. And it doesn't negate the day before. It's really just the day you're in right now that you need to worry about and not really future think about or future worry about tomorrow.
That's everything in life's that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a show I watch called Alone. Have you seen this show?
I haven't.
They basically take a survivalist.
My head, yes, but I haven't.
They take a survivalist and throw them out in the woods and just basically leave them there. And they film their own stuff. And it's a person that's all alone by themselves. And there was one guy on there that I saw on Grizzly Mountain. It's the season that it was on. And that was his philosophy on life too. Is like, I teach my sons this, that because when you look at his encampment that he made this beautiful encampment that he was living in. He won the show. But he was living in it for like a month or two, something like that, like crazy long time. And he said, if you look at this as a whole piece and you say, this is impossible to build, but when you take it one step at a time and start building on it day by day by day, it slowly gets done. And that's everything in life, especially in the drinking stuff too. Like if you really want to quit, just take it a day at a time.
Yeah. And it's not all or none. And I think so many of us, whether it's about having drinks or anything in our lives, any goal we're trying to achieve, any habit we're trying to shift, we get in this all or none mindset. And that's so detrimental. It absolutely doesn't matter what you did yesterday or what you do tomorrow. It's literally just what you're doing right now. And even if you don't check all the boxes on Tuesday, Wednesday is a new day. And that's really what this is about, is just being mindful of where you are with having drinks, where you are with how it serves you or doesn't, and just taking a little break and seeing how it all feels. And then, maybe at the end of the day, you end up drinking the same amount you did before you took a little break, but at least your liver has had a nice little vacation.
Mine needs a vacation right now. No, I love the Ayurvedic stuff you're talking about. I read a book that changed my life, and it was when I was about 33. It's when I started meditating, but it was...
so we know you're older than 33.
We know I'm older than 33, yes. But I read this book. It's called The Science of Yoga. And that changed my life. But it talked about a lot of the stuff that you're talking about right now.
It's incredibly fascinating. And
the Hindus were onto something.
As long as I have been studying this stuff, and really intensively for the past probably 5 years, and then just more intensively in my personal practice for the past 10 or 14, the more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn. It's vast and it can be overwhelming. So again, you just have to take it day by day and chip away at it. But they were dissecting and looking at the inside of the human body 6,000 years ago. They know some things about how different substances and different herbs and, just everything that we put into our bodies, how it affects our bodies. And so you're taking that 6,000 years of wisdom, you're marrying it with Western thought and Western discovery, and you're finding out that they really knew a whole lot more than we ever realized. I mean, they knew it. And a lot of that was taken away from them during colonization and imperialism and, so many terrible things that happened. And so I'm excited that so many people are getting excited about it, and that we're seeing what these incredibly knowledgeable, especially East Asian folks, are teaching us about Ayurveda, and all of it's available. I mean, I do so much self-study online.
Oh yeah, me too. That's how I learned everything that I know about that stuff, just getting online and looking up information. I mean, they were on to stuff that wasn't even the physical aspect. They were on to the mental aspect of being human as well. Yeah, it's all connected.
It's 100%.
When I think you're talking about the duality of life, the positive and negative aspects of everything, I think that's the key to understanding what being a human really is marrying the Eastern side of things with the Western side of things. Like you have to almost take them into like the two hemispheres of the brain.
Yeah.
Like we need to marry the knowledge of both of those societies together, and then we'll have a full understanding of stuff.
I think it would help tremendously. We're kind of myopic. We like to think that as Westerners, we know best and we know everything, and we are so wrong. We know some things, but there's so much more out there for us to learn as human beings about how to be good to each other and how to make our time on earth better for ourselves and for other people. And those things are not at odds with one another.
No.
At all. We tend to think they are, but they really aren't. And so much of it starts with taking care of yourself. And that's really at the root of it. That's at the root of what I'm doing with Drink Fit. It's at the root of all of these yogic practices. It's learning how to nurture yourself by mothering yourself or parenting yourself, fathering yourself, whatever. And embracing the things that make you feel good and limiting or eliminating the things that make you feel bad or that don't serve you. And if we are nurturing ourselves, we may not end up having 3 glasses of wine or 5 on Tuesday night. We might have 1, or we might instead have some tea or one of these non-alcoholic things.
No, I think that's a big part of why people do drink is there's a void they haven't figured out what that void is yet, and they're trying to fill it with something like alcohol. And I think self-mastery is definitely the key to that.
Well, and it is a shortcut to relaxation. That first drink, it's going to get you from point A to point B in 1 sip, because that actually starts even before you take the first sip. You start to anticipate the relaxation. It starts here when you know you're going to happy hour and you're getting excited about it. And then when you have that first few sips, then you start to feel that, it's a nerve agent. So you start to feel its effect on you, and you start to feel that relaxation. And so that's why so many people use it as a coping mechanism. It is a valid way to cope with stress, to cope with terrible things happening to you, to a point, until it's not. And there's so many things in our lives that we use to cope. Some of them serve us and some of them don't. And it's a matter of realizing, okay, maybe I'm relying on this a little too much. So many people found that out during the pandemic. I cannot even tell you how many people have DM'd me or texted me or mentioned in conversation, "Ooh, I really, really started drinking a lot during the pandemic." They were coping.
See, that's something I didn't really do much in the pandemic.
Some people didn't.
Yeah.
Some people did like me. They backed away from it or just realized, oh, I really am a social drinker.
Yeah. See, I don't drink when I'm alone.
Yeah.
I only drink whenever I'm out.
I have some friends that said the same. They were like, we realize we are literal social drinkers. We never drink at home. This is a couple friend of mine that, for some reason it sticks out in my mind because I was surprised by it because they're out whooping it up with all of us all the time. And she was saying, we don't drink. We realize we do not drink when we're just at home by ourselves.
Yeah.
And then I have some other friends that are like, yeah, I never drink at home at all, ever. Like Mark will crack open some beers by himself. And, now that I'm not drinking, it would be by himself. But a lot of people don't.
I have buddies that I play video games with, and they'll be sitting there having a beer playing video games, and I'm still just...
Speaking of, do you want to try this?
Let's try these, yeah. Let's see what else you got.
I'm going to open up the Cerveza Atletica. And this one, they call it a light copper. They get warm on us. Yeah, they're not really cold, but we'll be German about it.
We'll be fine.
I can't get this open because of my nails, but okay, I did it. I managed.
All you have to do is ask.
Sorry, I know. Independent woman.
No, the bartender broke down the other day. There's a young girl that bartends for us on Friday nights. Sometimes whenever I'm just, if you're hanging out. The other night she walked up to me and she's like, "Will you open this bottle? I can't get it open." And I was like, "Oh, this hurts you, doesn't it?" It
makes us want to crawl
this
under
hurts
a
you.
table. Yeah. All right, cheers. So
cheers.
This is one of my faves.
Whoa, dude.
Right? So what's
with the lime in that?
Uh-huh. I had it with an orange the other night at a party, and it was, I'm not going to say it tasted like Blue Moon because it didn't, but it really sold me on putting citrus in it.
I wonder if I can get this from somewhere. I would carry this one here.
They have distribution locally.
Do they?
And this is the one that I feel is such a great selection because their branding is so nice.
Yeah, it looks nice.
I'm a sucker, y'all, for good branding. Their whole thing, their ethos, all of their brand ambassadors are literal athletes. Like I'm not talking, somebody who like me who ran their Crescent City Classic once. I mean, people who do Ironman competitions all the time and who are skateboarders and people who ski and Olympians and yada, yada. And so their calories are super low. I think it's 60 calories or 50 calories, maybe less. It's on here probably, but I can't see it. That's where my 50-year-old comes out in me. But I also have always had terrible vision, so I'm not blaming it on that, but maybe it is. And so their branding is good. They have just delicious flavor.
No, it's nice.
Which is the whole point. And you're also not pounding back a lot of calories and sugar.
Let's go and whip the IPA open too.
Here, I'll let you open it. See,
nails.
Once in my life, I've been able to grow nails. These are my actual real nails. This is your little beauty intermission. I started taking this herbal supplement and my nails went crazy. It's really, I've never experienced this. Normally my nails are really terrible and I just don't want to mess them up already. Okay, so this is the IPA. I am not usually an IPA person.
I'm not an IPA fan at all.
But these are, it has a little bit of that bitter.
That's a light IPA.
Like hoppiness, but it's pretty light.
Dude.
Right?
They're so good.
I know.
Like, why? I don't want to like these.
I know you don't. I know you're very against it. You got the Heineken 00. And let me tell you, I'm not going to crap on Heineken 00 because they've done such a good job of getting it into everywhere. So I know that when I go to a bar, especially a dive bar, I'll probably be able to get a Heineken 00. And it does the trick. You know, it makes me feel festive on a hot summer day in New Orleans to have a Heineken 00. And also the bottle looks exactly like anything else. So if you're wanting to be on the DL with your non-alcoholic adventure, it's great to have the Budweiser Zeros and the Heineken 00s out there.
I wish I could confirm it for you, but I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't even try those.
I don't love it. I mean, God bless the folks at Heineken.
Well, I'm going to have to try it next time though, because these are actually really nice.
It's fine.
Anytime I hear non-alcoholic.
But these are better. So now you're going to be disappointed because these are so much better. These actually have a lot more flavor than a lot of the big guys, the big brands. But they are craft brews. I mean, they're literal craft brews. It's not an afterthought. And so the IPAs, the stouts, they tend to run a little lighter, in my opinion, but not in a bad way.
No, I think it's a good thing. Maybe that's why I don't like the IPAs. It's because the hops overpower me most of the time.
Same. Now, this I think is one of those stouts you could drink on a hot day and not feel like you're trudging through mud. You know, this is the Surreal that I was telling you about, the 17-mile porter.
It's interesting.
And this does have 0.5% alcohol. But again, I don't think anyone could drink
what is it,
enough. It has a coffee kind of vibe.
Coffee, but I'm getting like a lot of bubbles.
It's
like
pretty effervescent.
Extra carbonate, yeah.
Oh, and by the way, Guinness now has a Guinness non-alcoholic.
See, that would probably be delicious.
And I've heard very good things about it. It was apparently really hard to track down everywhere until a few months ago. And then one of my local sober curious people that she and I follow each other, she found it, I want to say at Total Wine. Total Wine and More is one of the local places to get a lot of really good non-alcoholic stuff. They have a lot of these beers. I think I got all of these there. He's going for seconds, by the way, y'all. I know that's my favorite too.
Favorite.
And they have some wines, some sparklings. They have a little bit of Lyres. Martin Wine Cellar, which I never thought I'd see the day. They have some of the non-alcoholic wines. They historically carried a brand called Ariel. I'm a fan of the Cabernet that Ariel puts out. It's non-alcoholic. Not the Chardonnay. It's kind of gross to me, but they have had that for many, many years. They recently started expanding their wine selection on the NA wines. And I literally danced in the aisles, you guys. And I joke, I actually made a t-shirt for myself that says, no, I'm not drunk. I'm always like this, because it's really appropriate to my personality. And so I'm sure everyone thought I was already quite loaded for the day, but I was just really happy to see that they have Lyres. They have a really good NA beer selection. I don't think they carry Athletic, but they have a lot of other brands and almost all the big brands. And then the wines. I mean, to me, that's like my heart, is being able to have a non-alcoholic wine that tastes good.
Yeah, we might have to have another podcast and do some wines.
Ooh, okay. I know you don't carry wine here.
We don't carry wine, but I'm interested in them. And if I'm interested, then maybe the podcasters are interested in them too.
Yeah, I think when my friends and I came by, I told them you allow people to bring their own wine because you don't serve it.
Yeah. So that's one of the things, that's one of the little deals we have here, that if someone does come in like you that drinks non-alcoholics and we don't have any non-alcoholic in the bar, if you want to go home and grab some and come back, we're open to that.
That's what I did the other night.
That's what she did. And it worked out great. But the same way with wine, we don't carry a lot of wines here because we don't go through enough. But if someone does want to walk down the street and buy a bottle of wine and come back, they're more than welcome to drink it here.
Well, let's definitely do a wine tasting of the NA wines next time. Yeah, because there are a bunch that I still haven't even tried because I tend to find my favorite thing and stick with it until I have a reason to try something new. And so it'd be a great excuse to try some new ones.
Yeah. So where can the people find you at?
The people can find me on Instagram. My handle there is @DrinkFitClub. They can find me on Facebook. My Facebook handle is facebook.com/drinkfitclub. And they can find me on the Drink Fit Club website, which is drinkfitclub.com. I also have handles for me as a person, as a journalist, and I sometimes put some of the non-alcoholic stuff on there too. And that's Melanie Warner Spencer on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And I'm the editor of 4 magazines locally, statewide, and regionally as well. So I'm on myneworleans.com a lot on the Bon Vivant blog.
And this
book that Kyle is pointing to is an incredible resource. It's the Eat Fit Guide to Zero Proof Cocktails. It's called Craft, and it has tons of incredible, delicious recipes. Some of them are some of your favorite New Orleans and or Louisiana beverages, such as the Sazerac, which is the state cocktail. We have a delicious non-alcoholic French 75. We have some that are just inspired by restaurants all over the state. Again, my authors, Molly Kimball and Ethan Skaggs, and Molly's team at Eat Fit all over the state, and Hope Fruget, who's a dietitian who also is a former journalist and photographer, took gorgeous full color photos of all of these cocktails so you can see what they can look like in beautiful glasses with gorgeous and yummy garnishes. We also have a guide to making your own bitters that are non-alcoholic, though there is a local brand called El Guapo that is non-alcoholic. And then there's All Bitters, which is a national brand. Bitters have a negligible amount, but again, some people like to just do zero, no alcohol whatsoever. This is just such a good resource. We also have a simple syrup.
But they have it on the website?
Guide. I have it on my website.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, you can get links to the book. Pretty much anything you want to know about me, and lots of resource guides like the drinks guide that I curated. And I have a blog there. And one very popular post or multiple posts is what you can expect in terms of benefits at 1 week alcohol free, 2 weeks alcohol free, all the way up to 5 weeks alcohol free. Because I want to at least let people know if they do a month or a Lenten alcohol free challenge that they can go on there and see what they can expect.
Yeah.
But again, start small. You don't have to get crazy.
Yeah. Thanks for coming today, Melanie.
Thank you so much, Kyle.